show. Now, this show basically focuses on Dr. Haney's death and resurrection. Now, if you're just tuning in, we basically discussed us going into the hospital and basically him losing his consciousness, his pulse, and his heartbeat. Now, where we left off was one of the nurses stopping in the doorway and saying, "Oh my God." And that was basically when they picked my grandmother up off the bed and they placed you onto the bed. Now, after they placed you onto the bed, they put their hands together like this and they started doing chest compressions on you. While one was doing chest compressions, another put a little machine on your finger and hooked you up to a pulse machine. And while one was doing that, another was still doing chest compressions. And then while they were doing that, they were feeling your neck, your head, and all this other stuff. And it was so much commotion in the room because there were about 7 nurses. There were 7 nurses, me, my grandmother, and your dead body. And so being in a room with 9 people in a dead body is not very comforting, especially if it's your grandfather's dead body. So back where I left off. When the nurse stopped and said, "Oh my God," she had basically realized that you were dead. Well, in the process of dying. Basically like we all realized. So as they hooked you up to that machine, your pulse was a straight line. Like there was no pulse. You had no pulse. And then one lady felt your heartbeat. You had no heartbeat. You were basically a dead person because dead people don't have heartbeats. Dead people don't have pulse. And dead people don't have consciousness. They're dead. That's the whole point of being dead. You don't live. And so after about 10 minutes of you still doing chest compressions, of them doing chest compressions on you, my grandmother weeping and screaming and crying, and me sitting there shaking you and begging you to wake up, I stepped outside of the room and I got my iPhone out and I texted my mother and I said, "Mom, Papa just died." And after I texted her that, I texted my cousin saying, "Jordan, there's been a family death," and he had said, "Who died?" And I said, "Pawpaw." After that, he didn't respond. And after about 2 minutes more, going into 12 minutes of them still beating on your heart, a nurse had reached for a cover to pull over your face to basically pronounce you dead, and she had it about to right here when you woke up, basically. And when you woke up, your pulse started turning from a line into zigzags, and you were moving, and you moved your fingers, you blinked, you were looking up and down, and everywhere. And then you started laughing. You were like, "What are y'all doing to me?" And I was like, "Oh, thank you, Lord, you brought my grandfather back." Now, what I want to ask you is, how did it feel in that moment when you were dead? Like, did it feel long? Did it hurt? What did you experience? What did you hear? What did you feel? What did you see?
Alana, it's almost impossible for me to really get my mind around this experience, because it was both a physical experience, and I think it was witnessed as a physical experience by all of you in the hospital at the time. But as far as I was concerned, it was a period in which I had lost consciousness, and I was in a period of complete darkness for a long time. But at the same time, when I came to see the situation that I was in, it appeared that on the right-hand side, I was laying down on my back in front of the pearly gates. And on the right-hand side was Jesus Christ, and on my left was St. Peter. And it appears that from what I was able to later reconstruct through my own consciousness, it appears that Peter had called me up in the sense that he had the responsibility of calling people out of life into death. And now, I know that might sound strange and all of these images and et cetera, but nevertheless, that was the experience that I had been called up. And another thing that was very, very peculiar to the situation is that while he had called me up, it seems that I was experiencing what might be considered the everyman experience of death, because I was in front of the pearly gates on my back with Peter on my left and Christ on my right, and Peter reading what I considered to be for a long time an obituary of me. But later on, I was able to sort of filter it out, and I was able to come to the conclusion that that indeed was my page in the book of life. That is, that each person that dies has a page within the book of life, and that he literally read my page. As a matter of fact, I think as the prophets say, he told me everything that I had ever done. And even now, I can graphically depict some of the things that happened in my earlier experiences growing up, and that Peter, in a real sense, had, when he came to the end of this page in my book of life, Christ responded, "Send him back." And of course, that's when Peter went into a real dissertation in terms of my efforts and why I ought not to.
I'm sorry to kind of inject this, but when you mean dissertation, what do you mean? Like, what did his voice sound like? Was he mad or sad or agitated or just calm?
Everything seemed to be very, very calm. The whole experience was that I didn't see either of the two, but I felt that there was Peter on my left and that Christ on my right, and that since I had been called up and Peter had read my page in the book of life, I was able to somehow understand that that was sort of the usual experience. But what was unusual about it was, after that had been read, Christ declared for him to what? To send me back. He declared that on two different occasions. The first occasion was after the reading of my obituary, and in the second occasion, when he told me to send him back, when he told him to send me back, and of course I went back, and then he made a remark that was quite strange and peculiar to me, because I've not been able to decipher it or to understand it, when he said that we need him up here more than they need him down there, to indicate to me that whatever I was doing, or whatever the reasons for sending me back, one reason was that I was needed back down here, but I was needed much more up there. Now, I don't know why I would have been needed. I did not enter into heaven. I did not go through the pearly gates, but that was the impression that I got when he said that we need him up here more than we need him down there. And of course, we can stop for this second commercial break, and then I'll get into some more discussions in reference to my odyssey, in reference to coming to some kind of agreement in reference to this. We'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Final segment of the show.